Hello everyone. We've built a lot of AI tools in the previous videos. In this video, I wanted to extend that, build something cool, get you to use an MCP server which has capabilities of reading files from Google Drive. That sounds pretty cool. And we had one very official repository, so to speak, for this, which is the official MCP repository, which has all its servers in it. Let me get you on the big screen. Now, it had some pretty cool servers like the one we built in one of the previous videos, which is the file system server. And we built some more. For example, we built a search engine in one of the previous videos. So you can check that video out if you haven't. And what I wanted to do was explore the Google Drive MCP server, but they have archived this now. They have archived this, and I even tried to use the archived library. It is still available on NPM, but I was not able to get it to work. So, as any developer or engineer worth their salt would do, I did the exact same thing, which is build it myself. I wanted to build it myself so that I can explore the capabilities and teach you guys about it. So let's see what we have in this archive server over here first. So basically what it says that it allows us to search for files in Google Drive. It allows us to query files via name, and you can basically search for a particular file name and it will give you the relevant responses. And it can also give you some types of the files. For example, whether it is a spreadsheet, whether it is a presentation, whether it is a document, something like that. All right. So that's basically what they wanted us to do. And in the previous videos, we've basically adopted the NPX approach of doing this. In this video, we are going to do it a little differently. We're going to go over the logic ourselves. So without further ado, let's get to it. So we have, of course, some prerequisites. We already have been through this in the previous videos. So if you have already built the previous tools, you don't need to go through this part. You can skip to the next chapter. So you need to have Python installed. Obviously, you need to have an IDE like VS Code that I have on my screen over here. You need to set up your Python environment, initialize a virtual environment, and you can then activate your virtual environment, which is basically what will get this particular prefix in your command line. You can then install the libraries using pip, which will install, like I said, all the required libraries that you need to build this project. And they are specified in this requirements file. This will be on GitHub. You can find the link in the description below. Then what you want to do next is simply get a folder, make a folder, have an init.py file like I have over here. We've been following this process for the last, I don't even know how many videos now. And then just make an agent.py and a .env file, which will have your environment variables. Agent.py will have your logic. All right, you'll write this logic, and I've already written it. I will walk you through it. And you can just do that, define the tools inside the agent.py file, and you can run the project using ADK web. We'll do all of this in a bit once I walk you through it. All right, so without further ado, let's go to our Google Drive folder. So I have a G Drive folder. Here I have my init file. I have my environment file, all right, which has nothing but my Google API key. That's all that's needed for now. There are a few more steps involved, which I'll go through it now. These are specific to this Google Drive project. So let's see what those are. So first you have to create a new Google Cloud project, because if you want to access your files from Google Drive, you need to basically make a project on Google Cloud, get some relevant API keys, add the relevant scopes, basically tell Google that you want to access this data externally from a certain application. You have to make that connection so that the security practices are in place. That's what we're going to do now. So you have to create a new Google Cloud project to start off with. So for that, you go to Google Cloud, just search for Google Cloud, go to the console, and you can create new project, something like this. All right, so I already have a project. I will not be creating it in this video. I already have my project AI agents. I'm on it right now. So that's where I'm at. What is the next step? The next step is to enable the Google Drive API. For that, you have to go to your API and services. You go down, go to Google Drive API. You will get an option to enable it once the page loads. All right, so once that is done, you just click on that button. I have already have it enabled for me, so I can move on to the next step. You have to configure an OAuth consent screen. So you've noticed basically when you log into a website and you sign in with Google, you basically click on your email ID, right? The email ID that is already logged in on your device probably. So that is what we have to configure now, so that your app can also have that sort of a feature, so that the application knows which users Google Drive do we want to get files from? Because obviously we can't get anyone's Google Drive files, right? You have to get files for your own account, which is signed in on your device, right? So you go to this page, basically OAuth consent screen, which will lead you to this page over here, something like this. So I already have one client created over here. If you want to create one for yourself, you go over here, select web application, then put in your origin from where you will hit this request. So if your ADK is running on localhost 8000, you put that over here, and you have to define a redirect URL, basically a URL that your application redirects to perform the authentication process, then come back to your application. So I won't be creating a new project, but I will show you what I have in mind. It's fine. You can see all these client IDs. I'll be deleting this project after I shoot this video anyway, so it won't be of much benefit to you. So I have this localhost 8000 listed down over here, something like this. All right, it's my application name, my authorized JavaScript origin, followed by my authorized redirect URI. I've specified it as port 8080. We will see where this is used in our code. All right, just assume that this is what is supposed to be done for now. Next step is to add an OAuth scope. A scope basically means you want to restrict what the credentials that you're about to generate can do. You'll generate some credentials, they need to be limited to certain parts of the application, because Google has a lot of data, right? It has your email data, it has your Drive data, it can have anything else, your notes maybe. So you want to restrict the scope of whatever is it that your credentials can do. So for that, you have to basically go to this data access part. So let's just go on a different page, data access. So you can click add or remove scopes like I have over here, and you can select a scope like this one. So if I go to add or remove scopes, I already have a scope that I want to list out over here. So I can simply paste that, enter, and it's already selected for me. You can select it when you make your own project and then click update over here. All right, so it will be visible after that. If you want to remove it, just click delete from here and you'll be done. And once that is done, we've already created this OAuth client ID, so we're good to go. Then once you create your OAuth client ID from this page, whenever you do that, you can download this client ID. It'll give you a download button. Now I won't be doing that on your screen right now because it's a bit of a security issue, but for you, you can just go back, create a new project. It will give you a download credentials option for sure. All right, which will be a JSON file. You take this JSON file that is given to you by Google's Cloud Console. You rename the key to whatever you want. I'm keeping it as what it is on your screen right now, and I place it in the root of my application inside the credentials folder just to keep it neat. So I have my G Drive folder, I have the credentials folder. In it, I've kept this JSON file which has my credentials. All right, I can't show this to you again, but this is basically where I've kept it, just to give you an idea. So you have all this set up now. Let's go over the code base. All right. So we have our agent.py file over here. There are some more things over here which I'll go through later on. We don't need to go through that right now. All right. So this is basically what our agent.py file looks like. We have some imports related to Google ADK, getting our environment variables, and talking to Google Cloud. Now I'm just defining some constants for my application. For example, where are my credentials stored, the one that I got from Google? All right. Where will some more credentials be stored? For example, these credentials inside my key file will be used to authenticate with Google, but that is not what is used to make an API call as we've been doing in the previous videos. For example, Brave gave us an API key in the search engine video, and we just used that API key and we were done. But Google follows a different procedure. Google says that you will be given a JSON file, you use that to communicate with me, then I will give you a new set of credentials with some more tokens. That is what you will use to make the API calls, and that will keep changing because I'll give you a refresh token with it. Or if you know what refresh tokens are, great. If you don't, that's basically a token used to get a new token once the previous one expires. That's what a refresh token is. Google gives you that with other things. So that is where I want to store this. This path is where I want to store that. All right. So right now you can see in my credentials folder, I don't have this file. All right. And the scopes have already been defined. I'm just keeping it here because whenever I want to talk to Google, I'll say that, okay, this is the scope for which I wanted to make an API call. Now I've also defined a port over here, which is 8080. Now it's tying you back together to what we saw previously, alright, where we were talking about a redirect URL. We still haven't used this value, we've just defined it for now. Let's go to the root agent now. As always, we've been using Gemini 2.0 Flash model to process our queries, and we've given it some simple instructions which are help the user manage their files. You can list files, search files, read files on Google Drive, and basically we want to run the function authenticate and save on starting the application. I've written this, but you can't rely on this exactly, which is why I've added some fallbacks, which we'll see in a moment. Then I've added some tools, which is authenticate and save, which is used to talk to Google to get the credentials and add this file to our directory. Then we have the list drive files function and the read drive file function. So let's go over each of these two functions along with some more that have been written on top of them. So first is the get drive client function. Basically what I want to do in this function is define a client that will be used to talk to Google, which is what I said previously, right? That will use these credentials to generate some tokens, and that token will be used inside the Google's library that I've imported over here, and that client will be fetched using this function, which will talk to my library, get the relevant client, which will be used to make my API calls. All right, it's fine. Pause, rewind if you did not get this part, and it will be clear for you. It is not something very complex. All we are doing is using Google's library to talk to Google Cloud. That's all that is being done over here. I've added some logs over here just to see where my code has reached. Nothing to be done here. But there is a function over here, authenticate and save, which is written right below that. So let's go over that. So when I go over this function, authenticate and save, it will check if credentials exist in my path. If credentials exist in this path, which they do not right now, then I can simply return because I already have the credentials. I don't need anything else. But if they don't exist, I want to follow a flow which will use my credentials that I've just downloaded from Google's Cloud Console. I have to provide the scopes, which basically is my read only operations on Google Drive for now. I will generate these credentials, and this is where I use the port 8080. So it will call port 8080, run the process on it, and it will authenticate my application. And then what it will do is it will write these credentials using this small piece of code into the file, which will be stored over here. All right. So that is what authenticate and save is doing. So it is run by default whenever I want to fetch my client, so that I always have my client available with me. So then I just get my credentials from the credentials path, because we are ensuring using this function that the credentials are generated. So we can just get the credentials, and we can use the build function given to us by our Google API client, and we can build our client with our v3 application. That's just what Google requires. You can read more upon it. You can read more about it in the documentation. For now, just assume that this will work. Alright, so I want to use the Drive API. I want to use version 3 of it, and I'm passing the credentials over here. So that is basically how I authenticate my application. Question is, how do I actually list my files now? So I've defined some parameters. First is the page size, the number of files that I want to list at any given point in time by default, which is 10, or I can pass a different number as well. Then I can pass a cursor. So Google does not really use a direct page number when it wants to get more files, let's say. So if I get first 10 files, for the next 10 files, it will give me a token for that page instead of the page number. So that will be passed over here by my AI agent. And a query. So if I want to search a certain phrase, a certain keyword in my files, I can pass this over here as well. So that is basically what's defined over here. Then I get my client, which is done via this function over here. We've already gone through this. And if you have any doubts related to it, feel free to drop a comment. I will be happy to help you out. So you get this client. If we do not have a query, we add a default query which says trash is equal to false, which basically means that get the files which have not been deleted, because Google also keeps your deleted files for some time in the bin, right? So I just want to get the files that have not been deleted. And if I have a query, then let's just search by the file name by default. So This is the format that Google uses in its query. Name contains this query. It can maybe, I think it can also use equality. The name is equal to certain something, but I want to keep it a little dynamic, not an exact search. So I'll keep contains over here, and trash is equal to false by default. You can remove this if you want to. So params have defined page size. This is basically the format that Google expects us to send. Page size, the fields that I want, which is the next page token, which can be passed in this cursor over here. Then the files, what do I want with the files? I want the file ID, the file name, and its type, and my query. So if I have a certain page, then I can just pass that in the page token over here to get the next page's data, and then I can make my call. So once I get my call, make my call, I'll get the files which can be stored over here, and I will return all of that. So I have my URI, which will basically imply how Google stores my files. I'll get my MIME type and the file name. And of course, the next page is token. This will be returned. Then, if I want to read the contents of a file, how do I go about it? Now, this was a little more complex, so pay attention. That is what I'll ask you. So you get the client once again from this function. Here, you will see that I'm trying to get a file by its ID. This is what I'm passing over here as a parameter. So you can make it more complex. You can maybe pass a name, try to fetch its ID using this part over here, and then dynamically handle that. But I've explicitly passed an ID just to give you an idea on how this can work. You can maybe expand it however you want to, depending on how curious you are. And I define my fields and I execute. So I simply add some cases over here that if my file type is that of a Google app, if I have a document over here, I wanted to present it as a markdown file like the one you're reading over here, an MD file, right? That is what I want to list it as on my ADK's interface. If it is a spreadsheet, you can list it down as a CSV. If it is a presentation, listed as plain text. If it is a drawing, listed as a PNG. Something like that. You can expand it again to however many application types you want to. So I've just basically handled all these cases. Then I go down and basically get my files information. And I just check that if it is a text file or an application.json file, which will maybe be your code file, it will decode it in UTF-8 and get the contents, list them out on your screen. And I'm just handling a default case, just get a base64 output for a case that is not handled over here, and I return whatever is given to me in the response. So that is basically what we are doing over here. Now to run your application, you already know how to do this. ADK web. Alright, our application is running on port 8000, so let's go and check that out. So we have the UI that we've seen a lot of times now. We've built all these tools in previous videos. We'll stick to Google Drive for this video. You can check out the other tools in the other videos that are listed in the description below. There's a whole playlist there or on my channel, whatever you prefer. Go check it out. For now, in our Google Drive project, I wanted to list 10 files. 10 files from what exactly? From my Google Drive, obviously. So let's see what kind of files do I actually have over here before we see the results. So I have my content folder, I have a spreadsheet over here, some random folder. In my content, I have some AI content over here, let's say AI 8. So I have some videos over here, AI 8.1 to 8.4. Then I have some system design content as well, which is going to be posted soon. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned, subscribe to this channel. And enough of self promotion. Let's test out these files. Now there are two observations before I hit this, and I'm sorry for building so much suspense, but it's important. One is that we still don't know, our ADK still doesn't know which user to get these files for. We haven't authenticated the user yet. So that's one thing. The second is that this model, Gemini 2.0 Flash, it's common for it to be overloaded a lot of times, which we may encounter during this video. So I wanted to show you that as well. Hopefully we don't run into it, ideally. But if we do, don't panic. That is all I am going to ask of you. Let's start with listing 10 files. But before that, I want to authenticate. So let's select the account that I just showed you. Let's continue. Authentication flow is completed. We can close this window now. And it will list these files for me. Now it has listed a lot of files. This AI 8.1, 8.2. No, these files that I basically just showed you, some of them I didn't show you, but of course they're all there. I want my system design files now. List files with system design. So let's just see what it comes up with. All right, so it gives me my folder. This is a folder, as you can see from the type over here, and it has basically given me all four of these folders. I think these are folders. Yeah, all these are folders, and this is as expected. I want to list some files with, let's say I want to get my spreadsheet now. The spreadsheet was over here, right? Let's just search for Drive MCP. Let's see what it gives us. And let's see how accurate this is. So it's given me one Drive MCP test spreadsheet. So just one result, which is quite accurate. And it is giving the file ID as well. So what I'll ask it to do is use this file ID and read the contents of this file. Now, before I make this call, I want to show you this file. So I have this spreadsheet over here. So I basically have three columns over here and three rows including the header row. This is the content, and I've basically asked it to read spreadsheets in the form of a CSV file, a comma separated file. So let's hit this and see how well does it perform. Alright, it's asking us to provide the file ID. We can just copy this over here and do that. And it's called the right tool. And it has given us the content, the exact content that I just showed to you. So it is comma separated, which is the intention. And it has even analyzed it for us, so that it has some columns and two entries, one for Bob, one for Alice. So that's some extra work that it did on its own, not bad. And that's basically what we can do. Now, some things that I would like to go over, some problems that you may encounter. So you may encounter an error which says that you're unable to sign in, and that it's giving you an access denied error. For that, you'll have to go to your application. Let's just go to this one over here where you set up your OAuth client. And from here, you go to the audience section. The reason why I'm able to read all this content is because I added some test users over here. All right, so you have to basically add the same email ID that you want to test it on over here, because right now your application is in developer mode. It is not production verified. All right, so you can add some test users over here, and that is what you will need to do. Otherwise, you may face an error. Second is that if these credentials you delete them by mistake or something like that, and if you try to test on the same user once again, you may not receive a refresh token with your credentials. So I've listed down a link over here. You can use that to basically figure out how to deal with that issue. It's a Stack Overflow link, and I suggest you to go check this out. If you still face any issues, you can list it down in the comments below. I'll be happy to help you out. Now, once you've built this project successfully, I have a bit of a homework for you to enhance your understanding of this project. I want you to write a function to re-authenticate. Now, what I did was support just one user at a time to read their content, but in a production case scenario, you will want to support multiple users, right? Now, this only supports credentials for one user. You want to handle multiple users. How will you do it? You can try writing a function for it. Another thing you can do is handle more, dynamic queries, because right now I just handle searching via name over here. All right, I just search for a name. You can try to maybe get files that are starred. For example, you see starred files over here, right? They are starred. You can search by owner. You can search by some other filter that Google provides. And I've listed down a hint over here. There is this link that you can visit to check out what other filters Google provides to you. So it can be a good comprehensive project for you. And that's something you can try doing it. Maybe you can give it an interface of your own. All right. So there are many things that you can do with this. For now, this is where I want to stop and just take a break. Let you finish your project, and I'll post another video in which we dig into something cooler. So stay tuned and follow for more.